Welcome to Spenelli Speaks. Hi guys, Danny here. Welcome back to my channel. I cannot believe that it is already the end of March. I'm just, it's crazy, and times are crazy. So I hope you all are well. I hope that you have been able to connect with your loved ones. I have found a really great app through my friend Nora at Book Bubbler. She introduced me to Marco Polo, which is a kind of like a FaceTime app. You're able to record video and it goes back and forth so that you're able to communicate with your loved ones. So if you're looking for an app that you can do that during these times of kind of isolation, please jump on in there. I've been loving it. I've actually connected with my niece and nephew through that and have been reading them books. So it's really fantastic. I know that times like these, the lack of social interaction is hard for some of us. So we try to find ways to do that ourselves. So if you're new here, I'm Danny. I'm excited to go through my wrap-up video today, wrapping up the books that I read in March. I actually was quite successful and ended up reading, I think, 9 books. So that's really awesome. And actually DNF'd only 1 book, which is good for me because usually I try not to DNF. So I hope you're a subscriber. If not, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, so you can see when my videos come through, and then like and comment as well. I love to communicate. So let's get off to a good start here and talk about the book that I DNF'd. Now, for most of you, you'll be very understanding of why I may have DNF'd this particular book, but I DNF'd Nora Roberts' Year One. And let me tell you why. It is too close for comfort at this point in time. I was supposed to read this book in February and just ended up not having time to get to it. And now I was going to read it in March, but let me just read like 2 sentences to you and you'll probably understand exactly why I decided not to read this book. So it says, "It began on New Year's Eve. The sickness came on suddenly and spread quickly. The fear spread even faster. Within weeks, everything people counted on began to fail them." Yeah, I'm good. I don't need to read anything about no sickness and how the whole grid went down and how people are now in an apocalypse. Nope. So needless to say, I will not be reading this book. So that is a will not be reading. Done. However, I did read a bunch of other books. So let's start like I usually do with our 1-star books. I only had one 1-star book, which typically I don't ever really have a lot of 1-star books, but this month I did. And that was Part of Your World, A Twisted Tale. So this is a Disney book. This particular one is by Liz Braswell, whatever. And it's like, what if Ariel had never defeated Ursula? This book, first of all, was so bad. I was really excited to read this book. I love The Little Mermaid. Ariel was my favorite for a very long time. I don't know how many times I watched that movie as a kid. I had sheets, I had this, I had that. I loved The Little Mermaid. So when I started to read this, I was getting excited. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna like this a lot. Be able to see what could have happened, be able to get into these characters' minds, you know, because when they're a cartoon on a screen, there's nothing really to them. They're pretty flat. Well, let me tell you what. 500 pages is pretty flat too. I did not care for these characters at all. I feel like the direction that they put Prince Eric in was completely ludicrous. And Vanessa, or Ursula, I feel like you kind of saw what she was doing, but it was like they were playing chess the whole time, but actually it was checkers. And what I mean by that is like it would be a tit for tat, like one would get the other, and then one would be 2 steps ahead, but like they never learned from anything. Like there was never a big assault of, you know, trying to defeat her. And then at the very end, when obviously they do because it's a Disney book, it was so dumb. It was just, I did not like this book. I was very disappointed that I wasted all that time reading this. I think this is considered like a young adult, but I mean, it was just so dumb. Ariel's supposed to kind of help and try to, you know, regain or help find her father or something like that. And she's just all worried about getting kissed by Eric, but not because there's more important things. And then vice versa, Eric is the same way. I mean, the most interesting character in this whole book was a small seagull named Jonas. That's it. That was my favorite character. Everything else sucked. So we're going to stop talking about that book. Then for 2 stars, I did have 1 2-star book. So that was The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, which is the 2nd installment of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. I had a really hard time getting into this one. I got halfway through and I basically tried to skim the rest of it because I just wanted to get done with it. I felt nothing for the characters. And the thing is in the first Hitchhikers, you kind of get a glimpse of Beeblebrox and how he might have more to the story than originally thought. And so in this one, it does revolve more around President Beeblebrox, but it's super lame. Like, they all just kind of start traveling in different directions, and then they make it to this restaurant, but then they're kind of sitting there and weird things happen, and then there's a big light, and then they travel somewhere else, and then they get like separated again, Beeblebrox and Trillian, and then also Arthur and Ford, they all get like separated, and it's so confusing and not interesting to me at all. So I did give that a 2. So not my favorite. Then we got into the 3 stars. So I did get into Evergreen Tidings from the Baumgartners. I did end up trying to read this book, and I got 50 pages in and I was like, I can't, my attention wasn't being kept. And so I switched over to audio, and that was a lot better. It was kind of cute because the narrator was speaking in like a Minnesotan accent. So she was kind of like, I don't want to do it because I'm going to sound like a dork, but so don't you know, and all that kind. Yeah, that's the kind of accent that she had. So it was kind of cute because I think a lot of people think that Wisconsin has an accent, which, okay, I understand I have an accent from Wisconsin, but I don't have that don't you know accent all the time. That's more of a Minnesota and upper UP kind of thing. So I don't have that kind of accent all the time, okay? So it was cute to listen to the audio on that. But overall, I just kind of liked it. It wasn't great. The dynamic of the book was kind of a mother who has total control issues, trying to control her grown daughter, and them kind of working through that. The husband retires, so, you know, his kind of element as far as like kind of jumping in as well. It was just a story. I mean, everything was pretty, you know, predictable. Every time something would happen that would be like a surprise, it was like, yeah, I could see that happening. So it wasn't anything that was like mind-boggling. I don't know if I'll actually end up keeping this book. I might just for like nostalgic purposes, but I don't know that it's like one of my favorites. So I definitely gave that a 3 because I mean, it was a nice story, but it's not something I would ever read again. Okay, so then I had another 3, which was The Secret Garden. And if you saw my vlog for that, you kind of know a little bit more about what I thought about this book, and I'll link that above. But for The Secret Garden, like I said in my vlog, I really enjoyed this up until about chapter 20. you know, this is about springtime. It's about a young girl, Mary Lennox, who her parents die from cholera while she's living in India, and she's sent to England to live with her uncle. And she kind of comes out of her shell at that point. She, you know, turns over a new leaf, excuse the pun. But, you know, at the same time, when I was reading it, spring was really springing here in Wisconsin as well. So it was really kind of encapsulating my whole reality, which was awesome. I really enjoyed reading about, you know, buds, you know, bursting and birds chirping and like seeing the same thing happen outside my window. However, once I got to chapter 20 and like things started to escalate with Colin, one of the characters, I was disappointed. I didn't like the way it was going. I felt like it was very, like, the characters were extremely privileged and they were taking advantage of other characters, and I really didn't like that. And I understand the tone. I understand where that's coming from because of the time of which it was written and the actuality of that time. But for me, I was just like, I don't agree with that. I don't like how these children are treating others. And for me, it kind of just totally jumped off the cliff at that point. So, you know, from when I first started reading it, really feeling it was going to be a 4, I did go ahead and rate it a 3 just because I really did not enjoy the ending at all. So I do recommend this as a read. Everyone reads things differently. Everyone, you know, has a different perspective. I definitely think as a classic, it is, you know, really important to read. But for me, it was okay. So that was Secret Garden. Then I have some 4s, which I have, my first 4 here was the 100-year-old man who climbed out the window and disappeared. Say that 10 times fast. I ended up listening to this in audio because, you know, with everything happening, I was like, I really need to get into these books. And at the time I was still driving back and forth from work. So I'm like, you know what? I can't get any more C.J. Archer books. So I'll go ahead and listen to the 100-year-old man who climbed out the window and disappeared. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. And if you recall my last rapid review, which I'll link above, I featured this book. There's so much happens. So it basically jumps from one timeline to another. So this guy's 100 years old, okay? And it basically goes back to his like life from, I think it starts when he was like 10 years old, and it kind of describes like his life. And he gets into the craziest situations. He's an explosives expert. So like he builds bombs and for different nations, whether they are good or not. And I mean, and then in what's happening in real time is just incredibly like, you're like, what is happening? I didn't give it a 5 because I would say like 2/3 in, there was a good span of time where I lost a lot of attention to what was happening. I felt like it really kind of got flat. The characters were kind of like, meh. It bored me for a good hour of reading. So I really lost a lot of attention at that time. And because of that, I did bring it down to a 4. But overall, I thought this book was very comical in a dry sense. So if you're thinking you're going to be like laughing out loud because, you know, someone's talking about a dick pic, no. Okay. Excuse my language there. But if you like dry humor, if you like things that are ridiculous, this is the book for you. I really enjoyed this book. I liked all of the characters, even if they were not, you know, favorable. I really liked this book. So that I gave a 4. And then the last book that I gave a 4 was The Bad Beginning. I am doing a vlog series on this, which I think you'll see after this video. But I read this month The Bad Beginning and then The Reptile Room, which you'll see in a little bit. But I really like the series of Unfortunate Events, which is why I'm doing a series on it. And the first book is really nice because it sets you up to really understand the foundation of this series, in introduces you to characters that are important and kind of gives you explanation of what is to come. It's really kind of unique the way that this author sets the series up, because it's written in third person omniscient, meaning that the narrator knows everything that's happening, but it's also written in first person narration, meaning that the author actually speaks directly to you in those I have seen kind of terminology. So I love it. I think Lemony Snicket is great. The Lemony Snicket is a pen name. The actual author's name is, I believe, Daniel Handler. And I'm just really excited to be diving into these books again. In this particular book, we meet the Baudelaire orphans. They become orphans because their home is basically goes down in a fire. Their parents also perish in that fire. And then they are sent to live with a distant relative, but geographically closest to them, Count Olaf. So, it starts a series of unfortunate events, unfortunately, and this is the first one. So I did give that a 4. I did like that very much. And now to our 5-star reviews. Now, I have been reading the C.J. Archer books, and the third one is The Apothecary's Poison, and this has been my favorite one thus far. It had so much in it, this particular one. It's about, again, Matthew Glass and India Steele, and they are looking for a watchmaker to help Matthew with a magical watch. And in each book, they kind of come to a varying sorts of like mysteries. So in this particular one, there is an apothecary who has been murdered, and they are basically trying to figure out who has done it. Magic is interwoven into the whole story. They find themselves in danger again, but this one gets a little steamy. And don't worry, it's like steam, like children's book steam. There's nothing that happens. But when you have been waiting for 3 whole books for them to finally admit to themselves that they like each other, it's steamy. So I very much liked this one. I gave it a 5. It's probably my favorite one thus far. Again, there are 10 books in the series, and I'm so excited because my Hoopla, my library account, just put on the 4th book. So I'm starting to read that now too. I'm so excited. That one is The Magician's Diary. So I'm excited. Can you tell? Yeah. Okay, so that's one of the 5 stars. Another 5-star is The Reptile Room. So again, this is the second in the series of unfortunate events, and this is pretty good. I like this one because there's more action. You really get to see the kids in action. They use their intelligence and their ingenuity. It's just, I just love how they work together as a team and to, you know, defeat Count Olaf. And I just really, Uncle Monty, which is the character, one of the main characters in the book, he's one of my favorite. I really wish that this would have worked out for the kids, because I think this was probably, out of all 13 books, probably the best situation for them, and it just really stinks that, unfortunately, it didn't. So yeah, this is one of my favorites of the series, so I definitely gave this one a 5. And then lastly, a 5-star review must go to Alice, I Have Been by Melanie Benjamin. I have to tell you guys, this book is probably going to stay with me for quite some time. There are so many elements of this that just, my mind keeps going back to. So this is fictional, so it's definitely not like a full-on biography. It is a book that is based on true events, but then most is fictionalized. And what I really liked about this author is in the very back, she does give you a portion of, you know, what is real and what is made up. So I really enjoyed that because it gives the reader that little extra, you know, so you're not thinking, okay, now do I have to go to Google and see what was real and what wasn't. So I really liked that. This is about Alice Liddell, who is the inspiration for Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So Lewis Carroll, which is a pen name, he was a professor at Oxford, where Alice Liddell was living with her family, and they were friends, though he was an adult. I believe he is in his early 30s and she's 10, I believe, when they first met, 7 when they first met. And it kind of goes through her growing up, their interactions, how that all happened. Let me tell you, it really is sketchy there for a little while. You're like thinking to yourself, I would have this guy like arrested if he was around my kids like that. But overall, the story was remarkable. You know, it goes into her and her family and the loss of her 2 sons from the war. And it was such a beautifully written story. I really just enjoyed it. I love the idea of learning a little bit more about fictional characters that were based on real people. I adored it. I thought it was wonderful, and for a while there I was really concerned that I wasn't going to like what I was reading, but overall I was just super thrilled. So because it resonated with me so well, I definitely gave this one a 5. So that's all the books. So how many is that? I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books. 3 of which were 5s, 2 4s, 2 3s, 1 2, and 1 1. That's pretty amazing. I think I'm staying on track for my reading goals, even though I did 3 audiobooks, so that's not bad. So 3 of 9, so 6 I actually read, which is awesome. And then I DNFed the Nora Roberts book, which can you blame me? Anywho, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Have you read any of these books? Do you have the same opinion as me? I hope you like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can see when I have new stuff coming up. I hope you all are well. I hope you're taking care. And most of all, I hope you are reading something great. Till next time, guys, happy reading. Bye!